What if I told you I found a way to demonstrate, literally demonstrate, that the creation story is true? However, caveat, it's metaphor. It's not what you think it is. It's not literal. I have been studying religion and myth from antiquity until I see a template that is consistent across the board in all of them. I find it in Genesis. I want to extract it from here. Now, I've been to a number of videos on YouTube looking at what other people are doing with interpretation, and there's a lot of gematria and different things happening, and I'm not seeing anybody get anywhere. What I am finding in the process that I'm using is interactive steps in the material. And what I want to say is that there is a nested teaching in all of them. There is a way that the humans function within the cosmos regardless of your belief system. There's one bottom line, and that's what I find in here. I'm very aware that some people have a lot of vested interest in this material being a certain thing, and I don't use it that way. I don't read Genesis as a true story. I read it as a metaphorical story that is meant for me to learn something from, and I want to know what that is. I want to know what is inside of it. Somebody wrote this story and nested something in it. Why wouldn't you want that? That's what I'm going after. In preparation for this video, I just did a little bit of Googling, and currently Jewish thinking about that is that, of course, it's a metaphor. It's not possible that it happened real. I mean, that it's literal. They realize that evolution has been happening, that dinosaurs used to walk the earth, that the universe is 13.8, almost 14 billion years old. They don't deny those things. They find a way to make the story work. In the end, what it sounds like to me, honestly, is just a shifted variation. It kind of comes down to this. In the beginning, God created the Big Bang and then evolution as a result. That's not what they say, but that's how it squares out. I'm looking for something different. If you're interested in looking at that, or at least seeing my theory, welcome to the channel. My name is Dan Paulson, and let's get started. I would like to identify right up front as I approach this, the way that I'm going to manage it is that I am not a believer in anything supernatural. Nothing. Whatever your religion is, I don't believe in anything supernatural. You can't show it to me. People tell you that stuff all the time. Not one of them can show it to you. When I look for what I find, not for what somebody tells me to find. I added this in for clarity. If there's a God and there's angels, then they won't be supernatural. They will be natural. Okay? That's how I approach it. I am what you would call a spiritual seeker. Let me describe this. Some people know, some don't. Spiritual, not religious. What does that mean? And there's people that think there's no difference between them. And somehow there has to be a distinction, because there very much is a mental process that is radically different, that is allowable within religion. In one of them, it states that you just look outward. You are you are a physical being, nothing else. You got a soul that's going to live on after you die, and that you, through life, somehow turn yourself completely over to what is out there. You are looking outward to space. That is religion. You are looking for deities out there functioning on your behalf. Spiritual is when you let that go, or maybe you can hang on to that, but at some point you turn it inward and say, my life condition is based on what I'm holding up here. I don't turn it over to anybody. I go resolve it myself. I look at my life. I look at where I came from. I try to understand things. I forgive. If I have aught against my brother, I resolve that. All these things that even Christianity teaches us to do, or religions. I'm getting off track, I know, with that, but you see what I'm getting at here. The inside part, the spiritual part, my life unfolds for me, not based on my relationship with the deity out there. My life unfolds for me based on my relationship with the quality of my memories and my emotional state from the past. Here is how I personally handle looking for answers. I go dig into the material, I research it, and I look for what is there with a completely open mind. That means I do not deny God or anything. I don't deny any of that stuff. An open-minded seeker wants to know what is there. They don't arrive with a conviction already and then try to prove that. I'm approaching it with, I don't know what's there. It's not what people are saying. There's something else in there. I want to approach it from a different way. And that's what I'm doing here. So it might sound strange to people. What's this guy doing touching Judaism if he's not a Jew? And all I can say there is that I find this very specific template in existence in so much of antiquity that that's really what I want to go look at. The Genesis itself is a carrier shell. In fact, Moses told us a story about that. The Ark of the Covenant. Things are inside of it that are magical things, and it's carried. And the people that carry it can't see inside of it. That's a metaphor for what these stories are, as far as I'm concerned. And so metaphorically, what I am doing is opening the Ark and looking inside. There's a way to use the stories to find out that there's something viable in there without them being physically real. When you treat them physically real, we're going to find conflict across the board, and we're going to have to deny things. We're going to have to make stuff up. It's not going to work. When we get done, we should be able to resolve that conflict if there's something there. Okay, so what I want to do is get right into it, the interpretation. It can be very foreign if you haven't seen it before. I have a lot of videos up on it. I'm actually learning it and working it. I'm putting the videos up because they're helping me learn what to do here. And I'll tell you that as I make a video with an interpretation, I will tell you that I don't have it finalized at any point in time. I'm continuing to work on it and try to understand it. What I want to stress is that we have modern day biases 3,500 years ago. They're living a life that is not at all like ours. And I think it's incumbent upon us to try and put ourselves mentally in that place when we're looking at the material. Being a storytelling culture, having this kind of intelligence, having no media, having no technology. It's pre-technology. Steel. Stone homes. Walking to work. Telling stories, singing songs, verbal. We have to get there. These are not little. They're big. Okay, what I want to say is that this is all a mental process, and it's taken a long time to work it out, but ultimately that template is there. There was a technique used, a verbal technique, to share that template, but create new stories on that template. So the template is the original material in there that is housed in something that serves a local population. What I have come to theorize, however, the reason I'm talking about it is because I can get complete consistency with this, is that this verbal process that they used is consistent across the board. It's like nesting something in fables, parables, something like that. But there is a very specific technique used regardless of whether this material comes from China, Tibet, the Middle East, wherever. Wherever this material comes from, it's the same process to extract it. It's kind of like their biggest gaming platform of the day. And we're looking for level 3. What is in there? It is verbal. We should all be able to see this if we have the kind of mind that's going to look inward. But these play out in the psyche. They transition from outward looking to inward looking. Here is what, in a nutshell, what I've basically discovered, that the human has a life. When you're born, you're pretty much an empty slate. We have experiences. We go through life. We get hurt. We look to heal ourselves. There's a method to go back and address your earlier life, to heal, to become somebody that feels better and has a better life. And that is what is in here. That is what is nested in here. It's the same teaching that you would get from Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching or from the Buddha in the Dhammapada. However, those are in different analogous terms. Look at this. An anchored ship cannot sail. What does that sound like? It just sounds like a ship in the water can't sail. But when you make it analogous terms, then it becomes part of you. I am the ship, and what I am hanging on to, that what this plays out in the psyche, what this comes to is that whatever I'm hanging on to from my past comes with me. I can't escape it. This is how it transitions into something that is an interactive healing step. Now, if I went to a different culture that didn't have ships, they want to teach the same thing, they might say, you cycle around that which you cling to. And that one's not as nested as deep. It's kind of true right there. But it doesn't tell you to let go of your past. It's telling you that you cycle around that which you cling to. But they're both conceptually holding the same lesson. It transitions in that way into the psyche from analogous outward-looking terms that are placeholders for something that actually happens in the psyche. It's a way to carry the story and translate the story without telling people, hey, you got to let go of what hurts you. People would go, yeah, get out of here. You tell them a fun story, and it's a storytelling culture. They're going to tell that. And of course, before moving on, I want to give a fair shake to the shell, the religion. A myth is going to be very adventurous and a fun thing to tell. Sailing and defeating ogres and, one-eyed, whatever, hydras, 7 heads, all that. A religion is going to carry the same template, but the vehicle is different. The outer packaging is different. And they have different purposes, and you can see that it has different purposes in the culture. I don't even need to go there. Okay. What I'm going to suggest as we get into this is that the creation story is what? Really? It is a creation story. But it's not the creation of the cosmos. It's the creation of each individual. Okay, to get into this, we have to have some rules in place. It's a complex thing that they're doing. We can do it mentally. We just have to see all the pieces and parts and put them in place. What eventually I realize is happening is that the human is born. They're born in a particular environment, that they are going to become a product, basically, of that environment, and that life is going to go on and that we're going to be kind of blind, just living life. At some point in time, a few people that are chosen or that are somehow some kind of different personality, something somehow, hurt, seeking, that once in a while people will find this and take this path, that few people are going to do it, and that you're going to do it because you've got cyclical problems that you just can't manage, and you finally realize that they're inside of you. You go inside to resolve those things, to take care of them, to resolve the the pain, the hurt, the shame, all of the things from our past that we begin to live through, that are causing us a hurt life, that we begin to managing all of that so that it no longer, we're carrying that up here. The process is to get rid of that stuff so that it stops hurting our life and gives us a better flow in life. And that in this process, there's a human development, and that you can create a template there on that very process. And that template is basically, you're born, you develop, hurts, that kind of thing, what I just described there. That's basically the template. In fact, that is the core template of what is the monomyth. The monomyth that Joseph Campbell saw is exactly this right here. He just didn't play it out 100% in the psyche. He was close. He kept the terms very nebulous. All I'm doing is putting them into very interactive steps. There's a conscious, a subconscious. There's the things that we store. There's a higher being all there that is in the material that we're working with in here. And we're learning to do that. So that having been said, there's a point in time in these stories where if they're on a template and I realize I'm on a template, that somewhere I can align myself with the story. There's a point in that story where I can recognize exactly where I fit. And in this case, it's going to be right where Adam and Eve emerge before sin. I know that place. Everything that they're using in the stories are analogous terms. They're analogs for something different. If you're still with me here, this is going to be an easy transition. Adam and Eve is carnal mind and soul. And we actually know that that's common from ancient teachings, and especially from China. And the idea that the male and the female characteristics are contained within one person. And that's not male and female characteristics, realistically. People have an aversion to that. That doesn't even sound right. What we're looking for is just analogous terms that mean conscious and subconscious. Everybody's male part is not male part. It's their conscious. Everybody's female part is not female. Those are analogous terms. That's your subconscious. Everybody has those. It's not about being man or woman, so let that stuff go. This is it's terminology that is being used, that if you can turn inward, you understand what it is. And if you can't turn inward, it's for you to carry. But when you say mind and soul, it's not really interactive. You can think about it, you can experience it, you can feel it, but it's hard to manipulate it. If, however, you say conscious mind and subconscious mind, it suddenly, instantly became interactive. Before then, it was not. The conscious comes about first, and in the hierarchy of life, as they're choosing analogs, you've got the male in charge of the female. We still kind of structure life that way today. Not always. It's just a part of what they were using as an analog. And the reason it works that way is because in the mind, we've got the conscious and the subconscious. And what happens? The conscious decides what the quality of life is and puts it and stores it away in the subconscious. The conscious is in charge of the subconscious. The male is in charge of the female. Then what happens is things get put away in here that are bad things, and then they act out. So there's going to be some bad offspring. There's going to be things happening there that, again, analogous to the way the human functions, the way the mind works. If we play it out there in the mind and in these parts, suddenly it comes online. So I'm going to suggest that Adam and Eve, when they're both together before first sin, is a time in our life where we are conscious, happy children. We're not infants anymore. We are now conscious. We wake up in the morning and we know we're going to have pancakes for breakfast, moose syrup, and we're going to go out and play that day. When we're infants, we don't know that. When we're small enough, as we get older, we begin to know those things. We have now developed our conscious and our subconscious, and we're happy at that point in time in our life. And that means what else? What can we infer from this time frame? Think back on it. Think of what we are today, or what we have become sometime in life, and what we were then. Back then, we don't care if you're fat, if you're ugly, if you stink, if you're this color or that color or this religion or anything. We have not judged. We are connected with the cosmos, and we're connected with it so good. Do you remember back when you were a kid, you had the deja vu all the time? You knew, oh, Dad's about ready to walk in the door. Boom, the door would open and Dad comes walking in. We had that connection, and we talk about that. People say, yeah, we'll do that as a kid, and then we're told to quit doing that. That's not what's happening. Nobody tells us to quit doing that. What happens is that's our natural, that's our most enlightened state, except that we don't have world knowledge yet. But that is our most enlightened state. That's the place we want to get to, where we are most connected to Source, living life without the filtration of everything that life experiences have put in there. Garments. Garments are analogous to putting over shame or things like that, putting things on, fears, denials on top of things that hurt us. When we don't have garments on, we're naked. At this point in time, Adam and Eve are naked in the Garden of Eden. At this point in time, the individual, the conscious and the subconscious, is not covered with anything, and they're happy in their life. That is where Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden. Child, self-aware, happy, not hurt. That's the point. So everything that happens before then leads up to this. Okay, and just to pull in some kind of support somewhere, we can go to Matthew for a second, and I won't type up the verse here. Matthew 18:3, and said, "Assuredly I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven." If I go to the Gospel of Thomas, we have one. Jesus said, "The man old in days will not hesitate to ask a small child 7 days old about the place of life, and he will live." So where's Adam and Eve at this point? 7 days into creation. We're at that point before sin. And if all of this is mental and plays out in the psyche, then the Garden of Eden was that childhood state of being. And what we're looking for now, the kingdom of heaven within, is the mental state of being later on. That is, it kind of gets back to that same point, except for one difference. We're going to have world knowledge. So the Garden of Eden is a little bit different than the kingdom of heaven within. With that established, let's back up and start from the beginning, and let me just walk through this. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and morning, the first day. All right, I'll forewarn you that in my example where the anchored ship cannot sail was super simple to see, these ones get a little bit more nebulous. That was like just a little finger hold in the process right there. These get thick. So as we go through these, we have to just kind of maintain an open mind. Let's cover the whole thing to begin with and look at it as in a bigger picture. It's going to be hard to see the steps in the beginning because It was 3,500 years ago. They're making this up, and we're trying to reverse engineer what they have going on. As far as I'm concerned, as we go back and read this right here, what I see in the beginning when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. This is what I visualize this as. The infinite potential of the cosmos. They didn't know it was expanding and all that kind of stuff. What they see is infinite potential and infinite human potential. Yeah, you know, that new age stuff. You can be anything you want. You can be anything you want that's human within wherever you come from. We need to maintain some reality here. Okay, if that is clear or nebulous, I need to move on. If it's nebulous, like I said, just hang on to it. Don't dismiss it, and let's keep looking at the big picture. Once we see everything, it kind of flows a little bit better. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and morning, the first day. Okay, and this one I'm going to tell you is also a little nebulous for me. As we move along into the next couple of steps, things are going to become more clear. This one right here is the beginning. We have to come into play somehow. So I'm looking at this and thinking, this is our emergence. This is our birth, that we come from anything, and we emerge and we are born. Again, these are going to have to flow together and be part of a larger concept. So let me go ahead and move on to the next verse. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. God called the dome sky, and there was evening and there was morning, the second day. If you look at these, there is some funny things going on verbally. Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters. So God made the dome and separated the waters. Let's try to modernize this a little bit. What if I was to say, I sent my child to this store, and so my child went to this store, and I saw that it was good that my child went to this store. That's a lot of unnecessary verbiage to communicate an idea. It's a storytelling culture. It's a storytelling culture. And God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. That's a lot of redundancy. And it was so. God called the dome sky, and there was evening and there was morning, the second day. But there's still something here. And I'm going to suggest it's this. This is where the waters is analogous to the cosmos. The waters that are below that is analogous to us emerging from there, and we're separating. But what I most get out of this is that there is a cosmos that is operating in this vast way, and somewhere we emerge as tiny little specks within that, but we emerge from it, and that we are subject to the same, well, we're going to get to this, but we're subject to the same cyclical kind of laws in the universe. We're going to start linking ourselves to something a little bit bigger just around the corner. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on the earth that bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with the seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. Okay, first let's pull in a few more definitions here of some analogs. Earth is my earth, my life, your life, my existence. We're going to call it earth. But basically, it is my relationship with life. That is my earth. The dry land earth, what I am doing is my consciousness, my who and what I am is, and my capacity to grow things and hold things in my mind is growing. The earth is going to be that. The vegetation down here, plants yielding seed, trees bearing fruit. Remember later on, Jesus says we are known by our fruits. That's going to fit here. All right. And I'll suggest there's always again, storytelling culture. There's going to be fun, flowery things in here, but there's also going to be hints and clues, the doubling up of things. Notice how it says here, let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it. Notice how important it is to say that's an interesting thing, fruit with a seed in it. And it was so. But then it goes so far as to say, so then the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with seed in it. So here we see that again, that repetitive thing going on. But I don't think it's just taking up space. I think it's getting our attention. And in this case, let's put it this way. The earth is my physical existence, my earth, my life, my reality. The vegetation is what grows from my garden. The vegetation is going to come from what I learn. It's going to be everything that is something that I'm wired with that functions. That could be laughing, having joy, desires, wants, crying, pain, shame, hurt. All those things are parts of who and what I could become. The potential is being created here for anything to come about from that. Anything can grow from where you are. This is telling us right here that, number one, we came from the cosmos. Number two, we are now a part of the cosmos, an existence of it, and that what is going to be happening in our lives is going to be based on what we are putting inside of ourselves or what we're planting in our garden, really. But ultimately what that means, planting a seed means I've learned something and I've stored it. I now remember and I can recall it. That's a plant. It's put away, but if I need it, it'll come up. Or if I don't need it, it'll come up. It could be a good plant or a bad plant. Remembering something here, though, that is important, that they doubled up on the fruit will carry the seed, and the seed is carried in the fruit. The fruit in our life is the manifested whatever comes out into the physical world. And it might be a thought or it might be an action, reaction, all those sorts of things. The fruit is what happens in the physical. The seed is what makes it grow. Now, if we are good, kind people, that's going to grow. When things come up, it's going to happen. If we're angry, we're going to get triggered. That's going to come out. But that whatever comes out of us is of the nature of what the seed of it is. So if we're screaming and yelling about, oh, you gay people this and that, and what is this, why do we give rights to people to get married that are not man and woman or something like that? They're showing their fruits. There's something more going on here. And that's what this is letting us know too. We need to know that when we're looking at our own life and we're trying to heal and we're acting out and you realize, why am I doing this? What is it triggered by? Teenage boy doing this, something over there, finance this, something that, whatever it is that triggers you, you look at the nature of that and go, this is the seed of it is that right there too. So that's what's important to know here. I'm going to interrupt my own video. I've started this one 3 different times completely over because I keep learning as I go, and I get to the point where I go, oh my gosh, I have to start over because the stuff I said in the beginning is obsoleted. That's happening now again, except I don't want to start it over this time. I'm getting more and more. The waters above and the waters below, yeah, the cosmos and us, we emerge from the potential, then we have potential from us as well. However, we've got 3 things that I've identified much better, and that is the sky, the dry land, and the waters. The sky, the dry land, and the waters. I don't know why I didn't catch this. I maintain that all of the teachings, no matter where you go, are going to be the same, just simply held in different analogous terms. And that's what I'm seeing right here. Analogous terms that I'm very familiar with, or that I'm not at all familiar with, but a part of the template that I am extremely familiar with. So I just have to make the link. Conscious, subconscious, higher being, though, the higher being. Where do we see this? So I'm going to say 1,500 years later, there's a teaching attributed to Jesus that's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, the trilogy. The higher being, the consciousness, and the subconscious. You can ignore the upper 2, but the subconscious, you can't blaspheme that. This is what we have to resolve, cleaning the inside of the cup, getting rid of things. All of that is going to fit into here. But in this case, what they're doing, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, sky, earth, waters. It's still the hierarchy. only it's global instead of personal. One of the fun things we get to do, because we can read and write and have all this access, is we can reword things. Take a look at this. I'm going to shift around some words and let's just see if they fit. I'm going to put those in place that I say I think they fit. And God said, let the subconscious under the higher self be gathered together into one place, and let the conscious appear. And it was so. God called the conscious earth, and the subconscious that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let the conscious put forth manifestation. Plants, I didn't change any more, but we see the manifestations there, the plants growing from the garden. All of these are analogous terms meant what is emerging from us. And it could be anything at this point. It's telling us that we are creating all of this, and from what is going to emerge from you, it's not in there yet, but the potential is going to be there. You are wired to become something. How fun is that? All right, I feel good about that, although I'm sure there's people that don't. I'm looking for what is nested here, okay? I'm not looking to make myself happy. I'm looking to find the truth. That'll make me happy. Okay, let's move on to the next one with that kind of new revelation in place. I think we're making progress here. And God said, let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and for years. And let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth. And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. One thing I haven't talked about here, and that is God said, God this, God that. And again, I said no supernatural, that I don't do supernatural. This is really the epitome of God of the gaps. And in fact, anywhere you find God, you will find God of the gaps. The very idea that woman punishment is going to be giving pain in childbirth. How silly is that? It's like they're passing a coconut through their pelvis. That's going to be painful. Why would somebody... I mean, the idea, that was already painful. Somebody comes along and says, hey, God did that. God did that. Oh, God did that. God did that. These things are happening. The God part is for the people that aren't going to turn it inward. That's part of the carrier shell. It's there. It exists. We don't know how. We don't know why. We know that it exists. So then as I work through interpretations in the manner that I'm doing it, God becomes an analog for something like the universe functions. This is just the way things work. We exist within this universe that functions this way. Next we go into let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night. So we see dome of the sky. This is this is our higher self. Separate the day from the night and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. Signs and seasons, days and years. We have cycling going on. The days and the years are, that's an indicator of cycles. And everything cycles in life. In fact, this teaching right here, this cyclical issue is going to come up again and again in the material, not just here in the beginning, but throughout the templates and throughout working through it, that there's always some sort of a cyclical issue. If you went to Greek myth and looked and saw somebody rolling a boulder at a hill and up a hill and it comes down and their punishment is to do this over and over again, they can never accomplish it. Liver getting eaten out, it grows back, punishment again. Phineas and Jason and the Argonauts, where he can't eat the food because Zeus has, created these creatures that come and defile it all the time. And it's a repetitive thing going on. In Jewish work, what you're going to see is that they're going to be using signs, cycles, constellations, things like that, which also comes from the Egyptians, and other people use that as well. People are using different analogous terms to denote the fact that everything moves in cycles. It's not just here. It is an incredibly important part of the teaching that everything is cyclical. That is how we observe it and interact with it. We know what's coming if we know what's happened. Okay, let's get back to it here. And signs and seasons for days and years. We've got cycles. And then we have lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth. I'm not certain what that is. If there is something there, there's going to be a lot of verbiage in here that is superfluous carrier verbiage. I don't want to dismiss any of it and say that that's what it is, because sometimes you think it's superfluous and then later you go, oh, no, there is something there. In this case, I'm not really certain. Really, we've got cycles are happening, and it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night and the stars. Precise? I don't think so. Half the time the moon is up at night and half the time it's up in the daytime. So that's not really there. There's something else happening as far as the psyche. When you play it out inside, it isn't about the outside world. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. Is there something happening there? I'm not certain. And there was evening and there was morning the fourth day. What I see here basically is that there are things that are set in motion, and they are going to stay in motion. And they've been put there by the cosmos. And there's nothing we can do to interrupt that. In fact, this isn't in the material, and I apologize. This is where I get verbose. But if we look at everything from atomic level, the way everything moves, the way it expands, that everything in this universe moves in waves, which is a cycle. A cycle is a single wave. Waves are continual cycles that just never end. Whether we're talking atomic structure, I mean, think of a circle. Think of something going around and around in a circle, and then you introduce the passage of distance, and it just becomes a cycle. Everything from the smallest to the biggest is that way. It's a structure that we are bound by. Yeah, cycles are incredibly important. I mean, just think of that. Everything is like these cosmic waves, and where are we? We emerge from that. What are we going to be doing? Cosmic waves. Life experience is that way. All right, let's move on to the next day and see where we are now. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. This is a beautiful metaphor. God, this is rich. I love this one. The waters, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures. The waters, remember, we've got the sky, the earth, and the waters. The waters are the subconscious. Let the subconscious bring forth all of the things that make you up. These living creatures are what you are. That becomes our life experience, is analogous to our life experience. The birds fly above the earth on the dome of the sky. Boy, I'm not quite sure. I want to stretch this one and say, is that thoughts? Our thinking, our mind, the things that are not maybe, they're manifest, but they're not manifest physical. They're manifest in a thought process. They remain as an energy. So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind, with which the waters swarm. Yeah, everything that is inside of us is going to be created. And God, life experiences, cosmos. That's what that is. And God saw that it was good. Oh, the winged birds, yeah. Okay, now what? We have be fruitful and multiply. What happens to us as life goes on when we pick up things? You know, you have a bad thing happen and you're like, oh, I got to keep that away. Maybe another thing later, and then another thing, and then more people, and pretty soon you're at some point in time in life, you're not even that original self anymore. So many things are happening that you have gone from that pure state of non-judgment to, oh yeah, them this and those guys that, and they, and up, all of this begins to happen, and it becomes a part of who and what we are, and that is fruitful and multiplying. Sounds like a wonderful thing, doesn't it? They're analogs. They're meant to carry something different. And when you play it out in the psyche, it is the things that we hold inside of us, that you might have one thing in there that continues to grow in life. It continues to emerge. It continues to multiply on the earth in the conscious. Our life continues to decay as we go on. Or, I don't want to use that term decay. That's a tough one. Our life continues to become this physical. We are connected with life. And we're not happy. Our thoughts are frazzled. We're not disconnected from that. That is because What was planted in the waters became fruitful and multiplied. And where once you were bothered by something later on, you don't even have a free moment to think. Okay, let's see how pretty that one is. Oh my gosh. All right, let's move on to the next one. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. I want to stop for a second and remind myself what I'm doing here, that I am looking to see that from the day I was born to the day that, or to the time in my life where I'm a happy kid before I've been hurt, that something is transpiring here. But it's not all about my existence. It is about the existence of the cosmos and everything. It is about my existence, but it's about how I come into being and how life is going to work. So the cycles aren't something that I am given sometime and that I have to learn to do. Cycles are something that you are stuck with, that you cannot avoid. These are the things that are going to be emerging in these right here. But at the same time, they're using analogous verbiage that is meant to influence a population. Meanwhile, I'm still looking for the toy surprise inside. Okay, let's go back and look at this again. So after saying that and looking at this, what we see here is that the cosmos is, let the earth bring forth, let the consciousness. This is us being told that, yeah, whatever is going to come from you is going to come from you. But that's what is nested in here. But at the same time, it's making it sound as though God created all of these things. Look at it said, it's even here twice, cattle and creeping things and wild animals of the earth of every kind. And it was so. So God made the wild animals of earth of every kind. These repetitions appear throughout antiquity and material that are meant to get your attention. I don't have this completely unraveled, but I can say that this just sounds again like whatever is going to be the potential to emerge from you is there, regardless. And then if we move on to the next one, let's keep going along and that'll put this together. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Okay, we have a couple of fun things to look at here. Number one, look at right off the bat. It says, "in our image, according to our likeness." But then down in the same section here, it says, "So God created humankind in his image." It went from something that sounded like polytheism to monotheism, multi-gods to one God. And I started looking at this and thinking, boy, that's kind of a connection to Babylonia. It is obvious to me that this is derived from the Enuma Elish. However, the only way to really see that is to dissect it or to interpret it in the way that I am interpreting it. It doesn't interpret and sound the same in any other way. We have to find that template. But I think there's something more going on, and I'm not quite sure what that is. There's a transition there from our to me, male and female. He created them in his image. I'm not sure what his image is, but this is what I know. In the end, when we're done dissecting the material, we have a higher consciousness. That's the part where we can get to in our mind if we practice or if we're good at it, where you are detached from yourself. When we're living in that mass, it's hard to do that. The more you extract yourself from that, the easier it is to do. You're getting back to that point in childhood where we're not connected and we could see things better. Male and female is very important in this case. Conscious and subconscious, those need to be established, that these are going to be something that is in place. And the reason is because we know that our conscious male controls or has control over influences the subconscious, and then the subconscious then acts out. That's why the woman sins. It's not the woman sinning. It is our, I don't want to say female part. It is our Eve. It is our subconscious. It is that the soul. It is that part of us that has been influenced by our life experiences that then continues to emerge in a hurtful way. That's all. Okay, let's move on to the next one. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. God said, See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. All right, I want to stop right there. Be fruitful and multiply. This sounds like, oh yeah, go ahead and just start banging out kids and have dominion over everything. This is us having dominion over our own life, our own earth, our own world. We have been given, by merely existing, the capacity to have control over our lives. And when we're young, we have been given that. The fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth, every living thing that moves upon the earth, over everything that emerges or that comes from our existence, we have dominion over, whether we consciously know that or not. That means everything that emerges from us is going to be a product of who and what we are. Not just the good things. This goes both ways. It always sounds like, oh, this is wonderful. It's wonderful. It's the good and the bad. What grows from your garden? Oh, fruits. Also thistles. So we got to watch that. When it says, yeah, I've given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree and seed within its fruit, you shall have them for food. We're going to be consuming our own thoughts. We're going to begin living from within our life experiences. But this right here is telling us that at this moment in time, you're not there yet. At this point in time, you can reasonably become anything human. You could be in an environment where you are abused and you become this horrible individual that kills people and goes to jail and gets a life sentence or a death sentence. You could be somebody who goes around and helps everybody and, tries to do good. What's the difference? Do people make that up? There's a measure of some kind of wiring in the brain that kind of dictates a person's going to be a certain way, personality-wise and whatnot. But by and large, at this point in time in this material, we're an empty slate. We have the potential to become all of that stuff, and that we could be removed from that environment and put somewhere else. That at this point in time, we are not Christians, we're not Muslims, we're not Jews, we're not Hindus, we're not we're not anything. We are ready to go. And that whatever we become after this is going to become who and what we are. But at this point in time, we're not there yet. The potential is still there. Okay, let's go on to the next one. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. As far as I can tell right here, this just continually emphasizes the same. I'll keep looking at it. I know when I was doing the Gospel of Thomas, I kept doing it over and over again, and it kept unfolding, and I'm probably going to have to do the same thing here. I'll do this a number of times and have more emerge. But so here, it's really all in day 6. There's a lot of repetitiveness going on, and what I see here in this is that all of these things are analogs. Everything that is alive, everything that emerges, everything that comes from you, everything, all of that is, the potential is here. You are ready to go. This could be something like this. Every beast of the earth, that is everything that emerges from you. You're the earth. Every bird of the air, those are the thoughts. What is your mind like? And everything that creeps on the earth, what is it that emerges from you at a low level? Everything that has the breath of life. I have given every green plant for food, and it was so. But our life is going to emerge based on the quality of our life experiences, but moreover, the emotional state that we maintain those experiences with. The experiences are actually just experiences. Those we can't change. The emotional state is the real significant issue. Okay, we're going to become products of that until we wake up and go, ooh, that's where the material is going to kick in. That is where the self-healing template kicks in. This is creation, and the self-healing template's going to pick right up here as soon as creation is finished. Okay, let's move on to day 7 and see what we come up with there. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished in all their multitude. And on the seventh day, God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. All right, I've got a few thoughts on this, because really I don't see any reason whatsoever to have a rest day when you're doing this stuff. From a carrier perspective, you're telling a population to take one day and worship. That's it. You got hundreds of thousands of people. Their structure is not like ours. They are stoning each other in the streets if somebody's done something bad. Your non-virgin wife on your married night to death on the father's doorstep. This is what they're writing in their culture. What does that tell you about their life? It is not like what we imagine it. Take a day, go to church or synagogue. Go to the temple. Go learn. Go listen to the Pharisees. Go talk to the scribes. Find out what is in here. However, what do we do with it when we turn it inward? The only thing I could ever think of, and it doesn't quite fit here, is that when we're making changes, the brain wires. It takes time for synaptic activity to happen. When we get hurt and when time goes on, it continues to get worse. Think back on your own life. Think of the first time you were hurt, second, third, fourth, and what happens. And eventually, at some point, you're a soured person that this has happened, and you realize that if you're the right person that is the chosen person, you realize that and go, oh my God, what can I do to change my life? But I know from my own experience, trying to forgive the people in the past that hurt me, there's a point where I realized, oh, I need to forgive them because it makes my life better. Okay, I forgive them. But you know what? If I thought about it, they weren't forgiven. It still hurt. It takes a while for things to change, for the energy to change. Also, when you're studying the material, seek and you will knock, things become revealed. I'm finding that out as I'm going through here, that the best way I can learn this better is to make a video and fumble through it like I am. It's got to sound horrible to people. It's like, does this guy even know what he's talking about? I'm working on it. It takes time, but it's unfolding the more you do it. But it's a mental process. It's like your brain is networking. But even then, I don't think that's what this means. There is going to emerge a network of stories. And 7 is going to be an analog that means creation. That's going to appear elsewhere. Somewhere in the end of Genesis, Enoch, 7th generation from Moses. That's it. He's not mentioned again in Genesis. Who's Enoch? Where'd that come from? What? 7th generation? Then later a story starts off, here's Enoch, chosen. He starts the self-healing path, the monomyth. The creation, there's no need to have another creation. That happened in the beginning of Genesis. What branches out there is other things. 7 is going to be a placeholder for creation, which means our creation, which means that time from when we were born to the time before we became. 7 is that age where we're not hurt, where we're little children that are connected with the cosmos. That's what that means right there. And that is what is important here. However, at the same time, when you're not turning it inward, you want to make sure that your population takes a day off to go worship and get things straight, even if they're not getting it straight. I would have to say that probably the per capita relationship between scribes, Pharisees, and practitioners back then is about the same today. Yeah, boy, I'm not going to touch religion. All right, well, the video is almost an hour long. I do definitely feel like I'm getting someplace, but I also feel like I'm struggling with it. But it's because it's old material, and I have to keep trying to work it through in my mind, put myself back there, figure out what's going on. There is something nested in here. They were doing it. They knew. They knew. They put something in so systematically that if you look and you start playing with it, you can start finding that system. It's not being made up. It becomes demonstrable, but only demonstrable to the person that can turn it in and start shifting those analogs. And they go, okay, yeah, I see this. I realize if I'm hanging on to something, I can't let go. I realize I have to clean the inside of my cup. I realize I have to be poor in spirit. I realize that if I want to find the kingdom of heaven within, I must do so as a child 7 days old. Those become structured, repetitive things so much that the more you read, the more things you see, the more you go, wait a minute. The people are sharing a lot of stuff here. Why is that? It's that template. It is that template. And whenever we see they're sharing, that's just where it's easy to spot. Where a flood story and a flood story is easy. A tree growing up and getting cut down and a boulder getting rolled up a hill and coming back down sound different. Conceptually, though, they're carrying the idea that there's a repeated something that's happening over and over again that you can't escape. That's the difficult part, making that transition right there. I'm going to finish this video. Yeah, it's long enough. I'll move into the next section, second creation, in the next video. Hope it wasn't too foreign. I hope it makes sense. I'm growing with it, and I think everybody has to grow with it. Even if you hear it for the first time and go, that's kind of weird. If you keep looking at it, it begins to emerge. It's just so foreign to us. We don't do it. It's understanding that I was born, I could have become anything. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And that if you go read the material, creation is nesting that. Here is you. Here's what happened. Here's how it emerges in that same way. So you take that life sequence and in plain language, you hand it to somebody, and in analogous forms, they look outward with it and put it, they select somebody. There's a point where you're young and you have not yet developed any issues. As we begin naming things or judging things or whatnot, then our life begins to become more fixed. All of that stuff is in the material. It is psychology. Yeah, well, I'm going to add a couple of things on the end of this video for anybody that's interested. I'll close it up right now. Hope it was interesting. Please feel free to add comments below and ask questions. I'm looking for help. I honestly, as much as I'm doing this and getting excited about it and thinking I'm finding things, I have not yet had any independent corroboration from anybody saying, hey, I tried that same thing and here's what I got. What do you think? Oh, perfect. That hasn't happened yet to me. So, am I making this up? Maybe so. Maybe so. Well, love one another. I'll see you in the next video. I got some bonus material on the end. This is probably how I should start doing my comparisons. I'm going to read something from the Enuma Elish, which is going to replicate this right here. Tablet 1, right at the beginning. At a time when even the glories above had yet to be named, and unuttered was the word for the world which lay beneath, it was then that the first being, Apsu, who was their source, and the progenitor Tiamat, the mother who gave birth to all, intermingled their waters, producing neither field nor marsh. At a time when no divine beings had yet come into existence, there were no names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. But the gods were given birth within those intermixing waves. The first were Lamu and Lahamu. Their names were spoken. I'm going to stop right there. Lamu and Lahamu in here is the same place on the template where Adam and Eve appear. Adam and Eve, first man, first woman, pure. Lamu, Lahamu, male and female, first appear. It's not created in the same way, but it's the first appearance. Male and female version of the same thing. That would be like saying, oh, my conscious and my subconscious, we're going to call him, he's Daniel and Danielle. Daniel and Danielle appeared. That's me as a child that has not yet developed anything else. And the, what does it say in Genesis? At first there's nothing there. At a time when even the glories above had yet to be named. Nothing was up here yet. The creation is emerging from a blank. And unuttered was the word for the world which lay beneath. It was then that the first being Apsu, who was their source. So this is kind of doing a God thing before the Jews. version of it. Here it is right here. That's creation. That the Jewish version, the one we just went through, was just longer. They add more pieces into it. They put creation into it. In this case, it's going to come about later. Those cycles and things like that are still going to be in here, but they come after that part of the teaching. So, you can shift things around a little bit and make them sound radically different. Constellations and things like that are moving, or something that grows is constantly happening. There's ways of putting these stories out there. Let me do one more that's even more obscure. The Tao Te Ching. Very much in the beginning. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. That is that empty void. Right in the beginning. People look at this and go, oh, this is so mysterious that you can't understand it. It tells you right in the beginning, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. That means you cannot tell this, you cannot explain it. The Tao is the way, it's not the material. This is the carrier, the ark, the package. And unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Naming is when we start having life experiences and going, I hate that, I like that. Ooh, I don't like them. That is the naming, and that is the origin of those things. Conceptually, these are all going to be teaching us the same thing. Outwardly, they don't sound anything alike. Somebody, lots of people back then, knew things that we seem to have lost touch with, but it's there if you look. It's there. All right. So much for the bonus. Have fun. Love one another. See you in the next one.